Hey everyone, and welcome to Lead Your Movement. I'm Angelique Grewers, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent, where we are the leading experts in helping professional service providers and consultants to win corporate clients. And this is our weekly show where we talk to entrepreneurs and business leaders who are using their platforms in order to drive positive change in the world. If this is the first time you're joining us, then welcome. If you're a regular, then welcome back. If you're watching us at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday, that means that we are live and we'd love to hear from you. We would love to know where you're watching from and we want to hear your questions and your comments throughout the show. So be sure to post those and I promise we will answer those and respond. If you're new to the show as well, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel on YouTube and that you're following me at Angelique Grewers on both Instagram and Clubhouse, where we love to continue these conversations. So, when we first set out to do this show, Lead Your Movement, we thought about what we wanted to talk about. There were so many shows out there, so many podcasts that looked at strategies. Let's hear from another marketing guru. Let's hear from another person talking about how to use LinkedIn or how to use webinars in order to grow their business. And we really wanted to do something different. We wanted to hear from the folks, the entrepreneurs who are out there really leading their businesses and using their businesses in order to make a positive impact in the world and hear their stories straight from the trenches. And there's really, I think, no episode that's probably going to do a better job of that than perhaps today's. Imagine for a minute that you are going about growing your business. Your business is growing year after year. You have a handle on exactly who your target market is. You're known in the industry. You understand what your services are. Your team is growing year after year. You've built a stellar reputation. And then all of a sudden, practically overnight, the rug gets pulled out under you because your entire industry runs at about 150 miles an hour straight into a brick wall. That's exactly the challenge that was facing our guest last March when the pandemic hit and pulled the rug out from under the entire travel and hospitality industry, when everything came to a screeching halt in a way that, frankly, has never happened to the travel and hospitality industry before. Our guest today is the incredible Amy Infante. Amy's gift as CEO and visionary of GitGo, which is an organization driven to empower success in the hospitality industry and win their hotel partners more revenue using proactive strategies, is the ability to leverage data, to leverage insights, to leverage process and talent, to deliver high value and revenue to GitGo's hospitality partners. Under Amy's leadership, the GitGo Group helps leading hotel brands and properties build lasting, sustainable revenue through a proven process of business to business development, B2B business development, tactics, and strategies. Amy's team, which she affectionately refers to as Get Goers, are in the trenches every single day conducting new business qualification, lead nurturing, and proactive sales tactics. They see firsthand the undeniable impact of using reliable processes coupled with a growth mindset. The winning combination provides sustainable revenue success and a ton of valuable insights to GitGo's hospitality partners, which include brands like Marriott, IHG, Sheraton, Hilton, Westin, and many, many more hotels that you all have stayed at. So please welcome to the show today the incredible, the inspiring Amy Infante. Amy, it is so good to finally have you here on Lead Your Movement.
It's fabulous to be here. I was reflecting. I think we saw each other right when the chaos was unfolding in early March of 2020. It was probably your last face to face at the moment.
It was my last. It was like literally a week or two right before essentially everything hit the fan. That was the last time, which almost feels like another lifetime ago, right?
It does. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell everybody, what is the movement that you were leading?
Well, thanks for the introduction. I feel like there's so much to unpack when you ask that question because I have such a passion for the hospitality industry. but really the movement that I'm leading is empowering sales, empowering people to have a better money mindset in sales, empowering hotel owners and hospitality business owners to see the possibilities and the opportunities that are out there to grow their business. And we do that in various ways that you shared in my bio. But that's really what I'm really passionate about, making sure that, you know, we have joy in our everyday jobs in the hospitality industry. We are meant to be hospitable. We are meant to make others feel amazing. But we have to focus on ourselves first and make sure that, you know, we're in a good place. And today of all days in this industry where we're at right now, my why has become more clear than it ever has. So it's a lot of fun, which is a strange thing to say during such times. But having the clarity because of what's happened in our industry has really empowered me to help empower others to be stronger and to see the opportunities that are out there for them.
So I'm going to come back to that because I think a lot of people, especially as they hear your story about this last year and how your business was impacted, will be really curious to know more about how you were able to find that place of seeing this as a way to better define your why and your movement and what you're doing in the market. Let's start by giving people some context for what it is that GitGo does, because I think you know, a lot of times we might be talking to a consultant or, you know, a culture development strategy, maybe someone in the DEI space. But what GitGo does is pretty unique in the market. There's only a handful of companies that do what you do.
Yeah, and we're evolving to a place where I think we even have more differentiators, which is exciting. But all in all, we're a commercial strategy agency, and we focus on the sales and marketing aspect of that and building out sales enablement so that hotel teams can be better at their job, they can be more efficient, more effective, utilize the digital space effectively, and have better conversations with clients in the B2B space. So we do that by, you know, consulting and advisory, which is a part of really our overall platform, which is augmenting staff in a lot of cases. You know, the industry has always been in a place where there's been high turnover in the sales teams, and the sales organizations, finding the right skill sets, having the right people in the right seats. It was a struggle before the pandemic and it continues to be now. And so we've been a staffing augmentation company. That's sort of how we started. That was the framework from where we were built. And then as we've evolved as a business, we've grown even further into, you know, building out complete sales enablement platforms, building out efficiencies for teams, whether we're the ones doing the work or we are giving guidance and tools and consultation to our customers to build it with their own teams in place. So the unique thing about GitGo is that we can plug in, whether it's an individual hotel property or a management company or a brand with multiple hotels. We build these solutions so that we can plug in and meet them where they are today and really understand where they want to grow and evolve that with them.
For folks who aren't familiar with the hotel industry in general, and I'll kind of share it from the layman's side, and then you correct me where I butcher this, right? So one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize about hotels is that there are a lot of hotels that you stay at are actually owned by a franchisee. They have a big global brand name on the front of the hotel, but it's actually a franchise property. And then there are these management companies that own what? dozens sometimes of properties, if that's fair. And then there are also corporate properties that are owned by the brand itself. Would that be a fair categorization?
Yes. So the relationship can be, it varies so much. So the management company may not even own the property. They're just hired by an owner to manage the property. Sometimes the brand is hired, or the chain, the brand is hired by the owner to manage the property. So there's various different relationships, and that's probably one of the most difficult pieces when somebody comes from outside the industry
Mhm.
to work with us, is to get their head around all of those different relationships.
Which makes it really both an exciting industry to work in, but somewhat of a challenging industry because you have decision makers all over the place. You could think that you want to talk to this property, but really there's a decision maker to work with that property that's over at a management company that's attention is spread across numerous properties in different parts of the country. And then in addition to that, there's different tier hotels, like depending on how busy of a market that you're talking about a hotel, one in downtown Atlanta versus Fargo, North Dakota. That there's these different marketplaces that hotels are in, and that makes a big difference in this industry as well. Not just the ownership structure and the management structure of properties, but then also the how big of a property it is, how many hotel rooms there are, and then also just kind of the market it's in.
Absolutely. And it really lends itself to needing to be very agile, and understanding all of that, but also knowing how to adapt and apply the strategies and tactics no matter what type of a market we're deployed to. And I think that's what makes GitGo special. Is, back in the early days when it was me and a small team of people, it was intuitive, right? It was just knowing how to go into a market and really get a grasp of it. And now, as we've evolved, as most businesses do, who remain successful, is we have process, and we have better standards of operating, and how we go into a market and really apply these strategies and these tactics, so that we can make a quick impact and make a big impact right where they need us and when they need us.
And so to that point, one of the areas of specialty for GitGo, now granted, the way that you tackle solving this problem for your hotel brands is through various, way your consulting, your strategy, your data, your systems, your proprietary systems, your training programs. You have an entire suite that you bring to bear to help these hotels. But one of your sweet spots specifically is helping hotels to fill their rooms with business accounts that are more in that sort of large, small enterprise, mid market space. So you are really helping them to tap into a very specific part of the market. And because of that, they're going to fill their hotel rooms. They're going to stay really busy if they win these accounts that are out there. They're going to fill us. So that business model means that there has to be companies and people who all want to stay in a hotel because they're traveling outside of where they live. So that's what you all are doing, but if I characterize that accurately. And then a pandemic hits, Amy. So your business is helping these hotel brands at various tiers and various types, whether they're franchise or corporate or management, and you're helping them to fill their hotel rooms through a whole suite of products and services and expertise that's all proprietary that you're bringing to bear. And a pandemic hits and travel basically overnight goes to zero.
Yeah.
What do you, as the CEO of a company, what was the first thing that was going through your mind in mid to late March 2020? I have to get my year 2020. What's going through your head? Basically, travel comes to a standstill.
I'm not going to lie, there was certainly some panic, but it's where my training kicked in. Honestly, like I have done so much personal growth, mindset work, and I firmly believe that things happen for us, not to us. That is just the foundation of my belief system. And so, even though I had the pit in my stomach, oh my God, what are we going to do? What if this? What if that? All the what ifs were creeping up. Um, Immediately, I jumped into how can we make this into a gift? How can we, and I didn't know the answers in the immediate time frame, like in the early days of all of this happening. And I went through every emotion, anger,
Mm.
uh, frustration, fear, all of it hit me. But again, it was really coming back to that place of faith of this everything is a gift if we can view it from that standpoint. And how can I firmly believe if we ask the question how, there has to be an answer. The answer will come. You open yourself up to the possibilities. And I also knew that we had made a lot of really good decisions prior to this happening. And so I knew we were going to get through it. I firmly believed we would get through it. And there was a series of things that we did for our business, making 3 different possible P&L plans and reviewing, and looking at worst case scenario, best case scenario. I didn't pay much attention to, and that's normally where I resort. It just naturally, I'm a positive person. But we looked at the middle and the worst case scenario and planned what we were going to do, and had a lot of conversations with clients, had a lot of conversation and a lot of conversations with our team too. It was really important to me. The first thing I remember, it's funny because it's almost like little pictures in my mind. I'm still processing, and
Yep.
I talk to a lot of people in business, all industries, but in the hospitality industry for sure, where I think we're all still processing what we've gone through so far. But it comes back in kind of waves of memory. But I do remember saying to my husband and my leadership team, I said, we must keep our culture no matter what happens, no matter what comes at us. I want to keep the team together. We've worked so hard and have been so intentional about keeping that culture strong. And so that was one of my top priorities, is how do I keep this team together and how do I keep the business stable.
So, it's, oh, gosh, you know, I have the good fortune of knowing you, of having worked with you and knowing you. And so I know that you have a sizable team. That this isn't this isn't a 5-person company here. You have a sizable team of full-time employees, and that you had done the work to actually build a team culture and instill that. How much do you think? I still think there's a lot of business owners who don't take that as seriously. How much do you think having a strong team culture played a part in your ability to navigate this past year?
I I can't even put a value on it. It's invaluable. Um, the reaction from my team, I see stories throughout the industry and in other businesses who've been hit by the pandemic as well outside of our industry. And I see stories of employees, bashing their employer and saying things, and it breaks my heart. Um, it was absolutely, it's hard to put into words. It was just, um, there's no way we could have made it through without having that foundation. I firmly believe that.
What did you say to your team? So walk me through that. You've got to pull it. So I'm sure there was the initial shock to you and your leadership team. One of the things that I personally have found as my team has grown is that there's not a lot of room for me to not have a plan, especially for the pandemic. I mean, we had live events, we had huge contracts with hotels, right? So we were
Yeah.
one of those customers to the hotels that's like wanting to pull out, right?
Right.
Um, what did you, but you have to be strong for your team. So you pull your team together. What do you say to them?
So I reverted back. We've had one of the things that we did before all of this hit that I'm so grateful we did is we implemented a mindset series into our monthly cadence of meetings,
Mm.
where we talked about things like grit and stamina and perseverance and positivity. Like we had these themes throughout 2019 and obviously the beginning of 2020, and we continued that. But that was the first thing that I brought back up with them is, we've gone through this training for a reason. We had no idea why we did, but we did it for a reason, and here we are. And we have the training and the ability to be strong for the rest of the industry because they need us. Our clients need us.
So let's talk about your clients for a second, because I'm as stressful as it was for you, those actually working inside the hotels. In fact, there are properties here in South Florida that are still closed. One of the famous properties in Fort Lauderdale that's right on the beach, the Diplomat, they're not opening for another month or two. So this has really taken a toll on people who work inside these hotels, and some of the challenges that they've had to deal with. What did you say to them?
It was hard at first, obviously, because I have this foundation of knowing, right? That, and some people don't want to hear that. Like I was concerned that I was going to trigger
Mhm.
some negative emotion because I can come from a place of a pretty strong foundation of this belief system. But I started sharing with them the data that we were seeing and the facts. And the facts are and were at the time that there's still a reason to connect with business clients today. They need you now more than ever to be a strategic advisor. They have no idea what to do to plan, what's going to happen, right? But we still have the opportunity to connect and to be human and to be there for them. And we were still actually in March and April and May, my team was still booking business because there's essential workers that had to travel and somebody needed to connect with them and to make sure that they had a place to go and they felt safe and secure and they had a relationship with somebody who understood what was going on behind the scenes in the industry and could explain to them, hey, make sure that you ask about this, those types of things. And so we really tried to share a lot of value and a lot of possibility, right? And also encouragement. As time went on, at first it was, we definitely needed to be sensitive to just, it was trauma filled, right? There was every day we were getting messages of people being laid off and furloughed. I think at one point it was 70% of the industry's workers. Yeah, crazy. And so we were mourning for our colleagues, and worried for them. And no one knew how long it would last at the time. But we were hopeful at the same point and said, people want to connect. They want to, business has to go on at some point, and they need to, at some point, we need to get back in front of prospective customers as a trusted advisor, because we know from all of our research and studies that it doesn't happen overnight. And this was the message that I was sharing long before the pandemic is conversations have to start sooner. we have to be more proactive as an industry. There was a lot of those messages that we were saying, and this just accelerated and just like blew the volume wide open. What happened, it allowed us the opportunity to really come forward and use our voice and share the message that for so long we've been, trying to shout from the rooftops.
So that must have been, so I want to unpack some of what you just said. I mean, I think the first thing is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to kind of break this down. It sounds like the first thing that you all wanted to do was just be sort of a sounding board and a calming presence for your clients. As opposed to thinking, well, we need to keep selling, selling, selling to keep our own heads above water. That your first thought was, let's focus on the relationship first. Is that a fair assessment to see that?
100%. And also show up. We have to show up every day, because so many of our larger contracts didn't stop. They kept us going, and that was, I felt the most blessed by that, because I could see inside of their organizations, team members being furloughed. Some of our contacts inside those companies were furloughed. And so for a period of time, we were just doing the work that we were hired to do. And we had to take some haircuts, and there was, lots of that, but we showed up every day. And that was how we were the calming force, I think, is just, we're here to do the job that you need us to do, and we're doing it in an authentic way that represented our clients. And there was so much talk at the time of, oh gosh, don't call a client right now. Don't call a prospect and have a sales conversation. And we were proving otherwise, because we were doing it in a way that built a relationship, made people feel comfortable. And it wasn't, it wasn't about, I always said it, prospecting, having those conversations, that's not pitching. That's being a human and trying to find, can I help you with something? Whether it's you need room nights, or whether it's you just need to vent right now, because there was a lot of that going on at the time, just oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're talking to meeting planners and travel advisors, and it wasn't just companies that were traveling, it was the vendors to those companies as well.
So I love that comment, Marty. She said, Amy, you were such an inspiration. And I completely agree. And I just want to say hello to Rev from Russia and LaShawn from Atlanta as well. So, I hear you talking about that. And it's so interesting because it really is the same type of energy that you've always brought to the work that you do, which I think is interesting because a lot of folks they try to fake it, right? They try to sort of fake, well, I'm going to be there for the clients, but really I'm just waiting until I can sell something, which has never been part of how you all do business. I also imagine, though, Amy, there must have been a part of you that was screaming inside of, I've been saying to do these things now for 10 years or however many years. I've been telling you people that, to the hotels and to the sales teams, like, this is what you need to do to plan ahead for a crisis and to make sure that you're doing these things. And there must have been a part of you that was screaming, like, I told you so, inside of your head, a little bit, right? Because there's change that you've been advocating for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I really had to be mindful of the triggers that I could set off. But I think, what it comes down to is I've always been about service to others over service to self. And again, it goes back to that personal growth training and mindset training on just having compassion for where others are in their journey. And that's where we've always been as an organization. I think I always look at our brand archetype, right? And it's a brand where we aren't always going to tell, well, we never will tell you what you necessarily want to hear. It's what you need to hear. At that time, though, I told you so was not it, that is not part of who I am. I wasn't going to go there. But I'm saying now, okay, you stub your toe, then you might trip over the brick, then you might hit a brick wall. Like, this is our brick wall as an industry, and we don't ever want to be back here again. So let's make sure we don't forget that what got us here is not going to get us to the next level. How can we learn from this? And that's what we've really done for our business, and doing for our partners' businesses too, is making sure that there's these things in place that we don't have to ever be back here again, right? It's funny, it's human nature, right? We change when we feel enough pain to change, I guess.
Well, and I think too, one of the big things that all of us who are trying to lead movements out there, right, is that we're always up against inertia. Inertia is one of the strongest forces in nature. That's not me saying that. That's physics saying that inertia is a tremendously strong force. And so, one of the things that I feel like every business owner has an opportunity for right now is to take advantage of the fact that inertia has been shattered. There is no inertia because essentially the pandemic came in swinging a sledgehammer at inertia, and it forced companies to change what they were doing practically overnight because they didn't have a choice. Necessity was the mother of invention. And it broke them out of old paradigms and ways of thinking. Now that inertia has been shattered, organizations have had to change. We're starting to come out of the pandemic. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing some evidence from the financial sectors of finally hitting the V-shaped recovery. What are some of the biggest changes and advice that you're advocating for in the hotel space, that you want these hotel properties to really use the recovery as an opportunity to build back better?
It's a really good question. There's a lot of opportunity to review making sure, just from a sales organization, and developing your sales organization, to review, to ensure that you have the right people in the right seats. We just introduced Colby to a lot of our customers, actually, and I know you're a fan of Colby. And that's been a wonderful tool for us to utilize with our partners to ensure that they have, because we've gone from a very reactive, transactional sales force throughout the industry. Times were great. These hotels were being flooded with opportunities that they couldn't keep up with. And that completely stopped. The bottom fell out. And now it's a complete transformation of the sales force that is needed. And I feel that that's going, that should have been in place before this hit, because that's what I've said has always been needed. It's interesting because we've always been called into markets that have had something happen in the market that caused that particular property that called on us, or the brand, to need help because a demand driver left the market, or tons of competitors just opened up. I mean, there's always a reason why you have to stay ahead and be proactive. But it's a different blueprint of the person that you need in that seat. And that's what we have to review as an industry. We can't keep doing the same thing and, sit a person who's never been in sales in front of a computer screen and say, here, call these people, go sell. We've got to elevate our level of who we're hiring and our training and skill development, and take advantage of the economy of scale, right? There's a lot of ways to be creative to develop your sales force. It doesn't always have to be a person in a seat The customers are acting differently now. They're not right outside your back door. So there's a lot of different ways that we can be creative to develop our sales organizations, and deploy the enablement for those, talented folks, those skilled people in the right seat, to make them even better, to support them. And I think we're heading there. I'm seeing a lot of great things, vendors popping up. This pandemic has given me the opportunity to connect with more CEOs of other vendors in the hospitality space than I ever did before. And there's so much opportunity for partnership and collaboration. And so it's exciting. It's almost, I kind of say it feels a little bit like the wild, wild west in a way, in the industry. But to me, that's exciting. I love change. I'm a little bit less hesitant around risk sometimes. And so I'm actually really excited for it. And I'm advocating that organizations stay open to different opportunities and new ways of doing things. And that doesn't just mean I'm going to redeploy my team to different markets or different geographies. It's not just about deployment. It's more about the overall architecture of how you design the work to be done and the team that's doing that work.
Oh my gosh. There's about 20 different pieces of gold in what you just said. One of
So
the things that was that you sort of said almost, uh, just so naturally, because I just think you think this way, and I hope it's a lesson that some other business owners who are looking to lead their movements will take away, is that you're really looking across the entire value chain at how everything is changing, and then helping to guide your clients to look at that. I feel, Amy, that and this is, I think, one of the reasons why you and I love having conversations, because we sort of see this the same way. But one of the things that happens for decision makers that are in the seats, who are deciding who needs to be in the right seats, and are we going to seize this opportunity to maybe change our approach in a very organic, holistic way, is that they often don't have time to even think about what's happening around them. The people in these organizations are constantly in a reactive go 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 place, sort of dealing with whatever is coming at them in their email that day or on their cell phone that day, and not really having a chance to step back and say, well, buyer behavior is changing, and maybe how you even want to configure your whole team and your whole all your metrics and your strategies all needs to be evaluated. It's not just, change from red to blue. It's much more organic and strategic than that. What are some of the methods, some of the communication methods and the vehicles that GitGo has utilized this year, other than one-on-one conversations with decision makers? What are some of the things that you all have done to put your thought leadership into the market, to help your target market think through the macro level changes that are happening as travel patterns and buyer behavior changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've definitely taken advantage of all the education that the industry organizations have put out there, through HSMAI, AHOA. I've been doing webinars to put this thought leadership out there. We've done, we did a complete revamp of our website that just went live a month ago, I think. Repositioned our products, and our programs and how we position that to the market. But I think really, your question was around thought leadership and what are the different methods that we've used for that. And it's a lot of trust and credibility building through those organizations and those partnerships. And so, for an example, I'm on the HSMAI Sales Advisory Board and leading the analytics work group. And so being able to be in the trenches with other leaders in the industry and roll up our sleeves and think through how do we scorecard our sellers in the industry to show ROI to the hotel owners. That's been a real enlightening and exciting project. And so putting myself out there into those types of projects, not afraid to say no to being on this virtual stage with other hotel and hospitality leaders through these organizations, and saying yes basically to every opportunity to address this topic to the industry in whatever way, whatever platform is out there. I've done some LinkedIn live shows myself to support the industry with other friends and colleagues. So yeah, there's so many ways to share the message. I think we can always do a better job of finding more methods and strategies and streamlining that. But we've really amplified it this year, as you know, from our conversations in previous years.
No, because I'm watching it, I'm seeing it. And I think one of the things that I noticed, that I'm always advocating for, and I think that you all do so well at GitGo, is that you're not putting out micro 3-step how to do something content. Not that that isn't ever coming out of GitGo, because obviously you also want to help with the implementation, but really taking the time to stop and think, and then look into your crystal ball and then say out to the industry, look, this is what we're seeing. This is where things are heading. These are what your priorities should be. This is what your team should be thinking about and planning for, because we're telling you this, the data is showing us, the conversations that we're having are showing us this is right. Or you might not be able to see around the next corner, but we can predict for you what's around that next corner. And I think you all do a really beautiful job of being bold and making those predictions out in front of the industry. When you look forward right now, what would you say are the 3 things that all hotel properties, because I do think, so let me just say I'm very biased, Amy, because I think that every prediction about travel not coming back is asinine. I just want to say that. Like I don't buy it, because the past and the present both tell us that's not true. We know that people are itching to travel again. Human nature is whenever you take something away, they want it more. We also know from history that every time there's been a prediction that travel wouldn't return, because we've seen these predictions happen after 9/11, after the 2009 recession, during the 1990 recession. We hear it every time, and then travel comes back. And we also know patents are being filed by airlines to accelerate air travel speed so you can go from New York to London in an hour. So we know that travel is coming back. I think there's going to be more demand 2 years from now than we've ever seen in the past. So knowing that, pretty much data shows us that even though Zoom is wonderful, StreamYard is wonderful, we know humans like to be together. So knowing that as sort of pretext that travel will return, what are your 3 biggest pieces of advice to the hotel sector on what they should be doing now and over the next 6 months, while they still have time to really get things in place?
Yeah, I would say, how do I articulate this? Even though you can't see today, I think a lot of hotels are waiting until they start to see proof that business is coming back. But we know in sales that there is a process that has to take place, and that customers don't buy just because you call them that day. And your sales team can't be put in that position. And that's where we've gotten into this horrible cycle of turnover and sales teams getting booted because they didn't produce in 30 days. So we've got to take a step back, and as a hotel sales leader, owner, operational leader, say, okay, we've got to give our team time. We've got to give our process time to build out There's, all the data. We throw out all the facts, right, about what buyers are saying, their behavior looks like. And they need at least six impressions before they even, will engage with a seller. They're doing a ton of their buying process before they engage, yes, but at the end of the day, they want to connect with a person or a organization that can help them get across the finish line. But the other thing is having conversations earlier. We did that whole study that happened before the pandemic, but it's still relevant today, and we're still seeing that same thing play out. Only 3% of your audience is ready to buy at any given time. So if you wait and have your sales team just wait and start working this pipeline, when you start to see proof, you're already way too far behind your competitors. So get your sales organization in place, and even if it's baby steps to do so that you can start to even understand, right? The data will show you too. Those conversations that sales organizations are having, that my organization is having, we can now predict when business is going to be coming back. We can see certain industries. We are talking to customers every single day who are telling us, yeah, our next trip is planned for July, and we're documenting all of that. If your sales team has the tools to enable them and they're having those conversations, you don't have to just wait and see. You can predict where your demand is coming from and when it will be in. You should be using your sales team as a research team as well. So that's a long answer, but number one.
I think again, just to kind of unbundle some of that, the thing that GitGo has done that is just market leading is be on the forefront of the data. And to really have proprietary data that knows exactly when these hotel properties need to start having these conversations so that it aligns with the buyer behavior. And I think, and you all have been on the cutting edge of this for years, of really looking in your industry of saying, we know because we map it, we track it, we measure it, and we can really map your hotel properties process to align with what the buyers are doing versus expecting buyers to bend to the seller's timeline. It's about really planning out cash flow and planning out pipeline to match what buyers are going to do. And I think that's a lesson that even though your data is specific to the hotel industry, Amy, I wish more business owners thought that way, because you really can't make the market march to the beat of your drum. You have to understand what your market's going to do and really kind of row with them a little bit. I love this question that came in from LinkedIn, Amy, just asking, I love this, especially because what you said at the very beginning of the interview is that you believe things happen for us, not to us. A lot of industries have found better ways of doing things. There are positive things that have come out of the pandemic. So this question is, what essentially positive changes have happened as a result of the pandemic in the hospitality industry that you're hoping stick around, that they don't go away just as we go through the recovery?
The first thing that comes to mind is the awareness about proactive sales. Everybody is talking about being proactive in sales today, because that's what we have to be doing. The business isn't just coming to the hotels. Some markets are starting to see a little bit of a ramp up of inbound inquiries, but I think that this has opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that we have to deploy more proactive processes and sales enablement tools and efficiencies to ensure that doesn't ever stop, because that needs to, and when it is consistent, I'll tell you, we had a hotel that we worked with throughout the pandemic, never stopped, just one particular property, because we work with properties and then brands and chains, but this is just one particular property in an oil and gas market. And because of the early conversations that we had with customers, because of the work that we did before all of this hit, that hotel has remained strong throughout the entire pandemic. And they've had new competitors come into the market all during this. So they've been hit from 3 or 4 different ways with, what you could deem as the negatives. And it was because of proactive efforts ahead of that they were able to sustain and stay strong through it. And those are the stories that are, getting out there. And this is the thought process that people are starting to wake up to. I think that, oh gosh, yes, we do need to think this through a little bit more.
I
I think that technology too is a big thing, and all the different, not only on the sales side, but even on the operations side of the hotel business, a lot of new technology to enhance cleanliness and safety of the employees, and all of that is really great. So
I think one of the things that people will love, I hope that sticks around, is I know this sounds crazy, but I feel like hygiene and cleanliness has become such a priority. I know I personally, as a traveler, am really appreciative of that. But I think the big lesson, honestly, Amy, that I'm taking away today is about being proactive and planning ahead. It's really easy to rest on laurels when things are going well, but we don't know when there's going to be sort of an overnight issue that we have to face. What is your best piece of advice to other CEOs and business leaders when a crisis hits them overnight? What would be your looking back at this past year, the journey that you've had with your team and with your entire industry? What would you say is your number one lesson as somebody at the helm of that who had to navigate through a storm?
listen and trust in your intuition, the nagging conversations that you're having in your head. Don't let it spiral. I think you and I have had this conversation before, Angelique. Actually, I think you might have given me this advice a while back, but the nagging shouldn't lead you into worry. It should lead you into action. So, what do you need to do to plan for that? It's very simple. It becomes more process driven, right? So when we were going through all of this, and I had a moment of losing my breath, like, oh, what if that? I would stop and think through, okay, well, what if that? What would we do? And here, and I'd talk it out with my team members, with my leadership team, and say, okay, how will we plan if something like this would happen? And so trusting in that, those things that pop up for you, and then acting on it. So many times we just wait and see, and we stew and worry. And I think the thing that got us through all of this was taking more action.
You said something at the very beginning of our conversation today that I think will probably be um, something that I reference back to, and I hope everybody else does as well. And that is, you did exactly what you're talking about here. You actually mapped out the worst, the middle, and sort of the best case scenarios, the worst case scenario, the best case scenario, the sort of the middle scenario, um, and looked at it. And, I think a lot of people in crisis, Amy, they're so afraid to look at it that they stay stewing in worry instead of actually facing it. It's amazing when you shine a light on it and you just look at it and you make the plan ahead of time, how it really can calm you down. I remember for us, we had to do the same thing. We had an enormous hotel contract. And we didn't know how long the crisis. Remember the 2-week shutdown was going to solve it. Do you remember that? Do you remember
Yeah.
2 weeks? Um, and so I remember we did the same thing. We looked at, what if the hotel tries to hold us to this impossible, to fulfill contract in this situation? Like, what does that mean? Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we did that as well. There is something really calming in really looking at it and just saying, well, what if, what would we do? And really having a plan of action. So I'm so glad you shared that. For
Yes.
all the hotel properties that are out there and all these hotel management companies that are out there, if they're listening right now, if they catch this on replay and they're thinking about, wanting to start planning ahead now and building out that strategy, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Absolutely. So the best way is on LinkedIn at Amy Infante. You can also find us at getgogroup.com. And I would love to connect with you. We do free strategy sessions to help kind of brainstorm through challenges. And we're doing a lot of team webinars and trainings as well to help get your team ramped up in the right mindset and thought process around proactive sales.
And I will say there are also some incredible case studies and content on your website as well that I think are very instructive, and insightful in terms of what's possible when you're really mapping to those buyer behaviors all along. So for those of you in the hotel industry, I would highly encourage you to take a look at those case studies and how those properties have been proactive and taken a more holistic strategic approach to what they're doing, and just how much that impacts their ROI and their results. Amy, I could talk to you all day about the travel industry and about all of this mindset stuff related to the pandemic. I hope people are really able to take away all those golden nuggets that you just dropped for us all throughout the interview. I hope they pick them all back up again, because you really did share so much with your thought process and just the steps that you took from the beginning and how you're helping your hotel properties navigate this. I think I'll tell you, I feel like you could probably write a book about navigating a crisis after all of this, just given what the hospitality and hotel industry has been through this past year. I hope they lean on GitGo on the recovery. It's going to come faster, I think, than a lot of people realize. We're already seeing inklings of it behind the scenes in the conversations we're having. It's going to come fast. It's going to come furious. So getgogroup.com.
Absolutely.
Amy Infante, you're amazing. Thank you. I know you're super busy. It's not like you have nothing to do these days with this recovery. So thank you for making the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Angelique. And I just want to say for those in the industry, if you're listening, if you have a chance to see this, um, I, there is so much love and compassion in the industry and so much resilience. And I know we are going to get through this. And I know there's a lot of other industries that have been majorly impacted as well. And I think that, the wonderful thing that I've seen is just the resilience and stamina of people and just that human touch. So thanks for letting me share our story, Angelique. I so appreciate you, and I can't wait to chat again soon.
I can't wait to see you in person soon. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
amazing. Amy, thank you so much. And congratulations to you and your team for what you all have accomplished this year.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, I love what Amy closed out with there, just about the love and the resilience in the industry. I think there's also a lot of, love and support of the hospitality, the conference, the travel industry from those of us who count on that industry to be there for us. One of my predictions, aside from the fact that I think over the next 2 years, we're actually going to see travel increase more than ever as things get better globally. And obviously, this is a global challenge, and things are going to happen at different speeds on the globe at different times. But I personally believe that one of the things that's going to come out of this is, at least in the nearer term, a greater appreciation for travel, a greater appreciation for in-person conferences, a greater appreciation for when we can get together. Because for all of sort of our modern lives, the last 50 years, really 40 years, travel has been something that year after year has gotten more affordable, has gotten easier. People have been able to do more of it. We saw obviously the heyday of Airbnb and tools like that. And so, really it was something that we always had available to us and that really wasn't taken away, other than perhaps we could look at the 2009 recession, or in 2001, when 9/11 happened here in the US. And obviously, there was a lot of fear and concern around getting on an airplane for a while. But by and large, we have always had it available. And so to have that taken away, I think human nature is that we then start to appreciate things more. So I personally am really rooting for the hospitality sector and the travel industry and the conference sector. And I think it's been really impressive to watch so many of the industries pivot and do what they've had to do and innovate. And also, I have greater appreciation for them than ever before. We personally, or we here at the corporate agent, we are returning to in-person events this year. Our Real Deal conference will be in person in Fort Lauderdale in October. We have sort of pre-registration going on right now for certain groups. We'll be opening up registration in May. But we can't wait to get back in person with our community, and to support the hotels and the AV companies and the travel groups. So we hope, for those of you who are small business owners selling into the corporate space, the professional service providers, the consultants, the coaches, the trainers, the spiritual healers that are out there that want to affect companies as well, we sure hope to see you in October in Fort Lauderdale. We'll be back next week with another fantastic conversation with someone who is leading their movement. Until then, this is Angelique signing off. Have a great afternoon, everyone.